What is going on, everyone? Thank you for once again purchasing the $3 steak, and this is the day Arrested Development died. Now, it's common knowledge that the show got canceled during its third season, and the now season finale of season 3 was the then series finale of Arrested Development. Years later, the show gets a revival, but definitely comes back a completely different show, and it was a completely different corpse and heart. But why is that? Well, for starters, one of the things I did in research was look at the show's writing staff, and they've let go of a lot of the few original writers, and by original writers, I'm counting people from 2006 and before. Writers Abraham Higginbottom, who wrote 24 episodes, and Carrie Dornetto, who wrote 13 episodes, were let go in 2006, among 12 or so other writers that were let go in 2006 or before. Both have had some great written episodes like Forget Me Now, Bringing Up Buster, and Best Man for the Job. These guys never returned, which clearly hurt the show, and in their place they gained writers Caroline Williams, Evan Mann, Matt Kirshen, who's a consultant, Jake Farrow, Chris Mars, Haley Cantor, and Maggie Rowe. On top of that, many of the cast members had different obligations, which made it hard for them to be together at once, which thus began the season 4 issue that everyone had, which was that the cast had standalone episodes and arcs that would eventually lead them to culminating back together. Now, I'm not saying that these are bad writers or that separating the cast was a bad idea, but when you put the two together and an almost decade-long hiatus, it makes sense that the show would have a totally different dynamic and feel. So let's get on to the first thing. Everyone being separated. I have no problem separating everyone. In fact, I actually liked it because I felt giving everyone standalone episodes gave them a chance to flesh out their characters' depth and arc a bit more. However, with the new writers and some of the previous ones not being able to come back, it seemed like a Formula 4 disaster. I feel like Abraham Higginbottom and or Carrie Dornetto would have been able to handle a season like this better because they have experience writing for the show years prior. The majority of the season seems to dislike the season, but I actually don't think they did that bad with what they had, all things considered. It definitely helps that season 4 got a remix so that the season would be a bit more linear and easier to follow. But that still doesn't take away from the show's problems. Let's begin with the character Michael. Seasons 1 to 3, he plays the voice of reason and the guy who grounds the rest of the family and their over-the-top antics. Michael clearly shifts without the family. And with George Michael, he goes from encouraging and loving towards him to overbearing, obsessive, and a little bit too attached. So he was separated altogether from George Michael and all alone. He begins to feel lost on the show, with quirks that didn't even seem to match his character entirely. His plot consists of trying to get signatures from the family for the family movie, trying to find out the name of Rebel Alley, and I'm not really too sure what else, because he kind of also disappears and has little to no screen time this season. For me, this is what kind of ruined the show and threw it off the rails a bit for me. Michael being the guy that grounded everyone was the dynamic that worked, in my opinion. And Michael being the one that has the incompetent, sneaky nature is just weird and unfitting. With Michael's character declining, it kind of made it hard to root for Michael. If this wasn't enough, Michael's in this love triangle with Rebel Alley and George Michael. I just don't know that this was the best way to handle him. The show is called Arrested Development, which means there's going to be tons of developments within every episode. Seasons 1 to 3 did this perfectly. Every episode had a comedic twist that made absolute sense and will make people burst out laughing at how shocking and ridiculous all of it is, especially when there's more developments being made throughout the jokes. And furthermore, the first 3 seasons were fast-paced and witty. And so watching it back the second and third time, there are definitely more jokes to look out for, because even a 1-minute scene can be packed with 10 jokes in them, and seasons 4 to 5 did not capture the same pacing, sadly. The first 3 seasons were just on another level. In seasons 1 to 3, we saw some episodes, such as the one where Michael tries not to be so hard on George about his grades, in the episode, the plot was simple and not hard to follow. In season 4, everyone goes their own way, and the main plot is to basically figure out how everyone goes their separate ways, only to come back together. This sounds good in theory, and even starts in a solid way, but somewhere along the way gets lost in practice. The day Arrested Development died, for me, anyway, came a bit mid-season 5. It comes at season 5, episode 8. See, episode 7 I thought was pretty funny, and I laughed at the idea of each son following their father and then the fathers making up some half-assed excuse. It was all three characters at their best. Episode 8 just wasn't that good, and for me, that's where it fell off. Because for one, I had had enough of the Tobias arc. The less said about the Tobias arc, the better. Maybe just becomes evil. I mean, her character has always been up to no good. She literally tried to get her parents separated and weasel her way into a company. But kicking an older man out of his retirement home is just mean-spirited and honestly not funny. It kind of feels like they forgot some of the qualities of her character and just made her all around evil. You know, maybe just falls into that category of being Flanderized, because that's really all she is. She's just mean-spirited and cruel. Next is Job. I loved his arc. Will Arnett and Ben Stiller have amazing chemistry. Why they chose to separate them makes no sense to me. Then to kill off Tony Wonder and bring him back on the finale just seems convoluted to me. While I get that Ben Stiller guest starred and isn't always going to be around the show, I feel like there were other ways around pouring cement on him when, from what I remember, he doesn't seem to be aware of the fact. Finally, this led to a season finale being wasted on a whodunit storyline in the disappearance of Lucille Ostero. This proved to be a lackluster season that I felt hurt the series the most. And all of this led to a horrendous finale that will get its own episode. That being said, thanks everyone for tuning in. I was your host, and I hope you enjoyed your $3 steak. No refunds.